Welcome back to the Talking Devils podcast, brought to you by talkingdevils.co.uk. I am your host, Keane Franey, and today, as always, here on the Friday evening, I am joined by former Manchester United player Phil Marsh, and we're here to talk all things Manchester United, all the latest news, transfer news, and also building up to the big season coming up starting next week. But first of all, what I would advise you guys, smash a like in the video, hit the subscribe button just below Phil, get that bell notification on. We have a lot of good interviews coming out this season and a lot of good podcasts every Monday and every Friday here on Talking Devils. So make sure you do that and you get all the up-to-date content coming up soon. Phil, first of all, first thing I'd like to talk about this evening is obviously you're a former Manchester United player. You've come out of the Manchester United Academy. You play with the football club. You've played with a lot of great players. You've seen a lot of great things happen in the football club. And the first thing I'd actually like to talk about is yourself coming through the Manchester United Academy, because we all know the Manchester United Academy has a great reputation in the world in terms of breeding good players, in terms of having that kind of link between the academy and first team, and it always seems to be in folklore and English football that the Manchester United Academy would be the best in the country. Just talk to us about your journey coming through the Manchester United Academy at the Cliff and kind of how that process was.
Yes, so obviously fondest memories from me when I first joined. I was obviously 11 years of age when I first went into the club, and met up with some of the coaches, and I think that was one of the main sort of pulling points for me. That the coaching staff was so friendly and forthcoming and made me feel part and welcome as soon as I got there, and obviously had a good side and some good players. But yeah, just being involved and going to some of them iconic training grounds like you just mentioned, the Cliff there. I remember the first time I turned up there and just seeing what that was about, and some of the famous players that had played there over the years. It was amazing, and yeah, just being part of that was amazing at such a young age. And I think that's inevitably what made me into the player that I became, because getting that kind of coaching from such a young age, being 11 and going into a club like Man United at the time was unbelievable. The training, the facilities, the coaching, everything was second to none. And for me, it was just an amazing experience from the get-go. Yeah.
And like you came through the academy at the time. I read in Wayne's book and Fergie Legends that you played alongside players such as Danny Simpson. You mentioned you played alongside Kieran Lee. You came through in the 2006 team as well. Who else during your time at the academy that who you would have played alongside? I understand you played alongside Gerard Piqué, who is now at Barcelona, has gone on to win a lot of things.
Yeah, well, to be fair, Gerard Piqué was only a bit later on when I signed.
Yeah.
Time he joined a little bit later on, but yeah. So Danny Simpson was in my age group. There was Tom Eaton was in and around that. Paul McShane, Johnny Evans, Darren Gibson, Fraser Campbell. All these kind of players were the sort of age group that I was involved in at the time. So some big players and some great lads. I think that was probably the biggest part that made it what it was, the team spirit and the sort of different sort of players and people coming from different parts of the country, or foreign lads as well. I think it was a great bunch and everyone sort of got on, and it was sort of like a big family, which the club instilled anyway. But I think because it was such a good group and we were successful, it made it sort of a joy to be part of. And for me as well, coming through the academy, I did mention before, obviously some of the coaches. For me, one of the biggest people in my sort of early stages at the club was Eric Harrison. Now I know he's a massive figure for everyone who's involved with Manchester United, but I have vivid memories of Eric obviously training at the Cliff, and I think there's only probably Eric and Sir Alex, the boss, where I've ever sort of felt in awe and like there's a presence around a person, and he had that about him. Not that he was a big shouter or he was aggressive or anything like that. But when he spoke, it was literally you could hear a pin drop in the cliff. And I think he was somebody who got the best out of so many young players, just because of the amount of respect that everyone had for him. And I just think he was an absolutely fantastic coach. He knew sort of when to sort of have a little go or when to sort of put an arm around you. And I think being sort of at the club at that point for me was such a sort of amazing period, because he was such a fantastic coach, as well as many others like Paul McGuinness, Tony Whelan, just to name a few. That some fantastic coaches, and we was lucky to obviously be getting coached by them at that time.
And Eric Harrison is someone in Manchester United's history who's always spoken highly about, in terms of he was that kind of coach who helped kind of develop that link between the academy and first team, and he played a very big part in terms of bringing players to go through. And again, you've just echoed what many Manchester United players say about Eric Harrison in terms of his style of man management as well. You mentioned like he knew when to have a go, but other times to wrap an arm around the player. And I think, look, at every level in football, I know we were just talking about off camera just about football, just in general, just before we went live, and I think man management is definitely, a very big part in football, and it's very important, especially in this day and age as well. And look, you've hit the nail on the head in terms of what he was, though, at Manchester United. He was a good man manager, and just someone who definitely helped with the development of the young players at the football club.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the biggest part, to be honest. I mean, if you look at the most successful managers, they all have that man-to-man management expertise, and they can, speak to players. They've got the approachability. They know when to, have a go at a player, or certain players need an arm round them. Some need, kick up the backside, and inevitably that was, something that I sort of had in abundance at the club. Obviously, Eric Harrison from an early age during the academy, and then obviously when I went in full time, and obviously had the coaching staff that I had there, like Brian McClure, and people who's been there, done it, and wore the t-shirt. And then obviously seeing the boss and the way he was with not just the first team players, every single person around Carrington, whether you was a cleaner, part of the first team, or whether you was a physio, no matter what you was all treated exactly the same. And I think that was why everybody had so much respect. But not only that, I think because everyone was sort of on a level playing field, it just made it was like a family being at Carrington every day, and everyone felt valued, and that's why he was so successful, and the players as well.
You mentioned that about the manager as well, Sir Alex, and you hear it a lot. You mentioned he knew everyone by name, like he treated everybody the exact same, and I think that's what he showed. He had that level of respect, treating everyone the same, but also what he always had a standard, though, in terms of from football, but also from a humanistic point of view as well. I think Sir Alex, he always had great principles, and and that's why I think Manchester United was so successful. And so, I suppose, not to throw the cliche out there, but United, because he had that level of respect. Like I remember I was watching an interview not too long ago when Cristiano was in an interview, and he mentioned it was around the period of time of the Champions League, a period where United had a tough period in the Champions League and the Premier League, and obviously Cristiano had the time when his father was ill, and Ferguson sat him down. He's like, you go and attend to your family, because that's the most important thing. And I think that just showed what Sir Alex was like as a man, in terms of as a man manager as well. Like he knew kind of how to look after the players, and kind of always do what's best for the player and for the football club as well.
Yeah, 100%. And just to echo that, I mean, for people who know, and some people who may not know, when I was at the club, obviously I had a horrific car accident, which kept me out for the best part of 12 months. And Sir Alex always made sure that I had the best treatment. He rung me a couple of times asking about me when I was in hospital, and then when I got discharged and I went back home and was obviously staying at my mum and dad's, he came and visited to my house, and just that was the kind of person he was. I was only a young kid at the time in the youth team, but to see that sort of worth from the manager to come out to my house and to make sure I was okay, it just made me feel like, $1 million, because although I'm injured and I'm out and I've gone through a horrific ordeal, I've had the best treatment and I'm going to get looked after. I'm going to try my best to work my way back. But obviously the manager's showing that trust and he wants me to get back. And the way it was dealt with was, amazing. So, yeah, only obviously positive things to say about Sir Alex from me anyway.
And like in terms like you talked about obviously the tragic accident you did have in 2004, January 2004. You were just kind of in the round kind of reserves and kind of coming out with the youth team at that point, and you spoke about that you were actually in kind of a rich vein of form before then. You felt like you were really kind of on top of your form at that point. How did that process feel like, when obviously it was a lot to take in, especially at a young age? And you spoke about this. Sir Alex was definitely gave you kind of a real, made you feel like $1 million. At that point in time, how was that process? How was the recovery process from that, and kind of where was your motivation at that point?
Yeah, it was really difficult. I mean, going through something like that at such a young age, after feeling as though you're untouchable and just getting a new 3-year contract, was obviously really difficult. And at times it was really hard, and I felt sort of really low, but there was always something or someone that would sort of lift my spirits, whether it be someone from the club or a friend or family. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the time it was dark, and I didn't really think would I get back to the level that I was at, because obviously the injuries I sustained were quite serious. So yeah, it was a really sort of tough period for me going through that, but inevitably, got myself back into Carrington. Did some really good rehab with the physios. I mean, the physios were amazing at the time. Richie Merrin, who's the first team physio now, he was there. There was John Davin and a few others at the time, and the work they did with me was amazing to get me back in relatively short time, really, considering the amount of injuries I had. So yeah, again, it was a difficult time, but thankfully, I ended up making a full recovery, and was made up when I started back training with the lads, getting back involved, and being back at Carrington more regular in and around the football side of things, not just being on a treatment table, going in a gym and in the swimming pools. You feel sort of excluded, if you like, from everything that's going on when you're injured, especially for such a lengthy period of time. It was obviously a difficult period, but yeah, just it was great to get back, and made a recovery and ended up doing quite well after that as well. Yeah.
And like in terms of, like you mentioned, the support you had, like not just from players at the football club, managers, like you had support from the Manchester United fans at that point as well, being a young player. How did that feel, like to kind of feel all that support from just not just your colleagues, your teammates, but the overall kind of Manchester United family?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I mean, I remember getting letters and postcards, and obviously social media wasn't as big as it is right now back then when I was there. So, nothing like Twitter or anything was around back then. But yeah, just amazing support from a lot of fans from all over the world, which helped me get through that dark period. And it was amazing having so much positive messages and stuff. Also, Roy Keane, who was the club captain at the time, he came and visited me in hospital, and was somebody who really sort of stepped up to the mark, if you like, in terms of from a first team point of view. He came and visited me a couple of times, brought me a copy of his book, and we had some deep chats. And he obviously spoke to me in depth about injuries and coming back from injuries, and not to let it affect me too much. And little conversations like that from obviously iconic figures was massive at that point, because when you're going through such a sort of ordeal, and you feel as though you've hit rock bottom if you've got players that are playing week in week out at the football club that you love. It gives you sort of so much confidence and the desire then to kick on and hopefully get yourself back fit, and then you can start enjoying your football again. So yeah, it was great.
And like when you made your return to like the first team slash kind of the reserves fold at that kind of time, you were coming back into a Manchester United team that was almost kind of going through kind of a rebuilding process that time. It was kind of around the time we didn't win the league for a couple of years, but you were kind of there was a kind of a lot of rebuilding kind of going on that time. There was a lot of new young players coming in, like Wayne Rooney coming into the football club, Cristiano, who I mentioned earlier, Alan Smith, players like that. What was it like to kind of be around the club at that point, and especially kind of during your recovery process, to see kind of this almost third great Manchester United team, even fourth great Manchester United team that Sir Alex was kind of building at that point?
Yeah, I mean, it was great. I mean, seeing some of them young players you just mentioned at the time, obviously I knew Wayne a little bit because he was a similar age group to me, and I played against him when he was at Everton and stuff like that. And he was from somewhere not far from where I am. So yeah, having him coming in, and then obviously Cristiano again, a young talented player with a lot of sort of flair and skill. It was great, and obviously I was still going watching the team every week, even when I was injured. I'd still be going to Old Trafford and watching the games. So it was good to obviously see some of this new talent that was coming into the club at that time, and seeing how they sort of linked into the team, and obviously it was very successful after the bedding in period, especially for Rooney. I think he obviously made a great start, and the fans was won over with him after that hat trick after his first game. I think it took a little bit longer for Cristiano to obviously settle in, and obviously did a lot of work with Rennie Meulenstein, who I know quite well, and another fantastic coach to try and get his end product a little bit better. Maybe not do as many tricks and skills, and just concentrate more on scoring goals and being more selfish in different areas. And I think once he, the penny dropped with him, you see, I think it was his third season.
Yeah, 06, 07.
Yeah, and he was, probably one of the greatest seasons I can recall from a Manchester United player. And everyone knows what he's gone on to do and become. And for me, he's probably the best player in the world, along with Messi, in terms of longevity and the numbers that he stacks up every year. So yeah, only positive stuff to say about them kind of players.
And like during your time as well, like in your kind of in your comeback and your return, you were forward, but also you kind of we spoke with this last week briefly, you kind of made a little transition into defence as well. Kind of reminds me and myself over here just at this level, going from forward to defence. It's kind of it's a weird transition we do, but for yourself at that level, kind of how did that kind of come about in terms of going from a striker to a right back?
Yeah, it was weird. As I said, Rennie Meulenstein was the reserve team manager at the time, and obviously when I came back, I was a striker. Quite a few strikers in and around that reserve team at the time. There was Giuseppe Rossi, Fraser Campbell, Sylvan Ebanks-Blake, just to name a couple of the lads who were sort of in and around that team. But basically what happened was we had a couple of injuries, and there's a few lads who'd gone out on loan, and basically there was just not a regular fit right back. And Rennie just pulled me to the side one day and just asked me and said, listen, we're struggling. We need a right back. What do you think? He said, I think you've got all the attributes to play in that position. You're strong, quick. You can pick a pass. What do you think about just giving it a go and see how you get on? So obviously, initially I was a little bit sort of took back because I'd only played as an attacker for me career up to that point. So defending had never been something I'd sort of looked at or delved into. But obviously having Rennie and Rennie being such a amazing coach, and the sort of trust he'd instilled in me from even asking me to do that, I thought I may as well give it a go. And I'm always happy to help the team. I want to just be playing, whether it's right back or up front. I'm not too fussed as long as I'm helping the team. And
Yeah.
in my first game, I remember it well. We played Leeds, and I had a great game. It was just, if you could have sort of written down your ideal performance for your first game in a new position, it wouldn't have been too far off what happened. And after that, it just gave me sort of, a massive confidence boost. And I started working on some of the defensive side of things with, some of the defenders who I was very close with, like Paul McShane and Johnny Evans and Danny Simpson. And obviously, being at Manchester United, the vast majority of the games we was, most possession, and there wasn't that many times I can recall that we, get beat or whatever. So I was lucky in the fact that I was involved in such a good and talented side. But yeah, it was just good to play in a different position. And as I say, you can see the game then from a different perspective, and it's, it did me well, because when I went back to playing up front, I knew then, obviously, when I've been playing in the right back position, these are what I expect of my strikers, and that's what I expect of my fullbacks. And to know now, obviously, from both sides of the coin, you can see it, and you've played there, so it just helped me to see the game in a different sort of different light.
And like in terms of like movement and all that type of stuff,
all that kind of stuff, just the movement, what balls you want into your feet when you do get into positions, like, and obviously being a striker for majority of my career, when I was getting into positions to put balls into the box as a striker, I knew what kind of service I'd be expecting from my fullback or my winger. So I was lucky enough to sort of, be putting balls into areas where I knew my centre forwards would want the ball. And it just worked well in that respect, because I'd obviously played up front for the vast majority of my time.
Yeah, and like another thing, like if you're playing between striker and right back, you said like getting the delivery into the box, you kind of know where to be. But even from being playing from a defensive aspect and then going back up front, you kind of know what a defender is uncomfortable with getting. Them types of crosses, then different types of movements coming across the back post, front post, things like that. And again, it shows adaptability that if you're able to go between them two positions, that it kind of helps you, kind of your overall awareness. And look, again, if you have good coaches like Rennie Mullestein around you, you're gonna pick up, even if you've never played it before, and you're playing like with defenders like Johnny Evans, like you mentioned. And obviously, we a right back at the club, and Gary, he was just one of the most consistent defenders of the Premier League era. You're gonna pick up these things so fast, and I think that must have been a good experience for you at that time. Obviously, playing different position, it probably gave you an extra bit of fire.
Yeah, definitely did do, and I think I was lucky in the respect, as I mentioned, we had such a talented group, and as I said, the vast majority of the games we'd had most possession. We'd win more times than not. So for me, being on the ball and having me facing the player rather than being a striker, sometimes you get your back to goal and you're making runs in behind and in the channels and stuff. It was a different position, so I was getting the ball and I was being able to push on and play out wide and then overlap and get crosses into the box and not really have to concentrate on doing too much defending, which helped me in a way, because obviously being an attacker, I think that's what I was most scared of, really, being caught out maybe 1v1 or switching off at times when because as a striker sometimes when the ball goes sort of over the halfway line, you can maybe switch off a little bit and try and put yourself into a position to get on the ball next time. Whereas a defender, you can't really switch off at all, because you've always got to be aware of where your man is. If the ball's on the opposite side, you need to be tucking in. You don't want to leave yourself isolated at any point. So yeah, just enjoyed it. It was a different sort of experience for me, which worked out well, and Rennie trusted me, and it just sort of gave me that other sort of perspective on the game, which helped me over the years in the long run, I think.
Yeah, and look, again, it kind of gives you that extra awareness of the game, and look, you're still playing now, so that adaptability can definitely help you in the long run. You talked about kind of going through the recovery process, and you've been kind of around other players at the football club. Just like to touch on our current manager at the moment, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Someone, when you're going through your recovery, he was actually going through recovery from his knee injury as well at the same time. Obviously, he was during that recovery, he was kind of studying the game in terms of, from kind of management standpoint. He was going to go into coaching and stuff like that. What was the process like working with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? I've heard from a lot of people that, like, from watching interviews and stuff, that he's kind of a great man manager. What was that process kind of like, kind of working with him, even like on the training ground and stuff?
Yeah, as I say, it was good for me because Ollie was somebody who I'd already struck up a relationship with because of that injury. We spent a lot of time together, whether it was in the gym or, doing rehab or, whatever it may have been. So that sort of bond on a personal level between me and Ollie had already been made. But yeah, again, somebody who's just enthusiastic about football, loves the game, great man manager, somebody who's, approachable, always laughing, smiling, joking. That's just the kind of person he is. Not to say that he doesn't take things seriously, because I think people can sort of take that the wrong way. He does laugh and smile and joke and seem as though, nothing phases him, but he has got a sort of mean streak if things aren't going well, or if people are taking the mickey, or if performances aren't good enough and they drop below expectation. He would tell you in his own way, and he wouldn't make no bones about, ruffling a few feathers, no matter who he was. So that's just something that I, from a personal experience and knowing the way he was, and I think probably, watching him and the demeanour he has now, I think that's probably still the same. But yeah, a great man-to-man manager, great guy. Obviously worked with him in the reserves, and made me my first team debut up front with Ollie. And he was always somebody you could have a chat with as a young kid. Someone who's fantastic to learn from, great player, but even better person for me, and somebody who I really respected and think a lot of. And obviously, I'm glad to see he's been given the opportunity now at the first team, and he's sort of making steady progress. And hopefully this year he can go on better and maybe get a trophy, and hopefully things will pick up for him again, and we can start challenging for that title.
Definitely. We're actually going to come to that in just a couple of moments with regards to obviously Everton tomorrow and our expectations. But I'd like to come to a couple of comments here. Just we've a couple of questions in for yourself in terms of your time at Manchester United. First one from Reese is question for Phil. Did you have to do initiation at the club? And if so, what was it and how did it affect you as a player and as a person?
Yeah. So this one was quite weird, actually, because when I first signed, usually the initiation would be done by obviously the new under-17s players, the new first-year YTs. Now, when I signed, there was only 3 players that got given a contract. So there was only myself, Danny Simpson, and Richie Jones. So because there was only 3 of us, obviously that made it even more sort of intensified pressure, because there was only going to be 3 of us doing it. Whereas if there was a big group of players, you'd have longer to think about what you was going to do. You maybe see 3 or 4 or 5 lads do it before you, and you think, oh, well, they did that, and I can maybe do this. But yeah, I remember it was Ryan Giggs used to be sort of like the ringleader with all that, and he told us before training, right, as soon as you finish training, you come into the first team changing room before you go up for your dinner. You got to do your initiation. So we was all like bricking it and thinking, God, like what we're going to get asked to do and all that kind of thing. And so we trained and then came back in, and we had to go into the first team changing room. And so there was just 3 of us YTs, and obviously all the first team players are sat in the dressing room. Just you can hear a pin drop. Everyone's just staring at you. You sort of shaking, not knowing what's going to happen. And it was Rio Ferdinand actually was the one who sort of stood up and sort of said, right, who's going first, what's happening, type of thing. And to be fair, Danny Simpson was quite a confident lad, and he was from Manchester, and you know he liked all his music, and he had that bit of a swagger about him. So he went first, and he had to sing. He had to rap and sing a song on the physio bed. So he stood on the physio bed and did like a little rap. I can't remember what song he sung, but he sung a song and he did all right. There was a few sort of heckles from a few of the first teamers and what have you, but yeah, so he did that song, got his out the way. So it was just down to like me and Richie, and then I think Richie was like, "Yeah, I'll go." Wanted to get his out the way, so he ended up getting told he had to just go around the dressing room, and he had to try and make all the players laugh by doing whatever he wanted to do. So he could have pulled like funny faces, dance moves, noises, whatever. So to be honest, I was like, I'm glad I didn't get that on, because that would have been like proper embarrassing. But yeah, in the end, I had to basically, Rio Ferdinand said, right, he said, I'm going to pretend that I'm a girl in a bar and you've got to come over to me and chat me up. And then,
oh no,
yeah, it was terrible. So I had to basically go and chat Rio Ferdinand up and then take him back to the physio bed and like perform like sexual positions with Rio Ferdinand. So that was my initiation. I won't go into too much detail, but I got a few laughs. Let's just say that it was quite funny.
Oh my god! Well,
mortified about. Yeah.
I'm going to come to another question with regards to just the questions from the viewers. From the legends and ex-players within the academy during your years there, who are the players you looked up to the most and felt you had a stronger relationship with?
To be honest, like Tom Eaton was somebody who I was lucky enough as a kid when I was there from a younger age, because of my physicality and I'd filled out a little bit quicker. I sort of was playing a year above my age group a lot of the time, and someone like Tom Eaton and Paul McShane and players like that, they took to me really well, and I think respected me because I'd obviously been playing a year up. They were two lads who I used to sort of gravitate towards in that group, because they was just dead nice lads, obviously great players, and just people that I could maybe bounce things off. And being a lad coming up from the younger age group, sometimes you feel as though you maybe need to sort of make a point to say that I deserve to be here. But with them, they was always saying, making me feel welcome and bigging me up, saying, "Oh, you played really well there today, and you're doing brilliant, and keep working hard," and this kind of thing. And I think obviously them two for me, and I still keep in touch with them now. So they're two lads that I think made a big impact on me.
And it's actually great to see both of them back at the club as well. Tom in the playing capacity, and Paul McShane then is in a player kind of coach capacity with the under 23s as well. So it's great to see both lads back there. And again, as you said, that they were kind of good for you when you were coming up as well. So it's kind of good to see kind of that relationship still be there, and it's good to kind of see that both lads kind of back at the club at this present time. Reese also asks, as a former United player and academy grad, what was your proudest moment in your opinion from your time at the club?
To be honest, there was quite a lot, because when I was in the academy and then went into the full time, we was like so successful. I think in my time there, we got quite far in the youth cup. We never actually won that, but we won the Milk Cup. We won 3 reserve leagues that I was part of. We won Manchester Senior Cup. We won tournaments when we went abroad. We went over to America, Dallas Cup. Opened. I think it was FC Dallas's new pitch against Real Madrid in front of a sold out crowd, and all them memories that I've got are all positive. There's not been any season really where I look back and think, apart from obviously the crash when I was sidelined. All the memories that I've got are so positive, and just feel fortunate really to have been involved at the club at that time, playing with some of the players that I played with, being so successful, being in around some of them first team players that we've mentioned, class of 92, and Ronaldo, Rooney, Vidic, Ferdinand, etc. It was unbelievable, and not really anything that I could look back and say was negative. It was all positive. So yeah, there's not one thing really that stands out. It was just the whole sort of
experience.
Club. Yeah, just everything. From the get go, really. I was 10 years there. I was there from 11 to 21, and the full 10 years really. Bar that crash was amazing, and I think the crash obviously was a massive low point and a negative, but I think it made me into the person that I am today, and having to come back from something like that, and to obviously come back and then make my debut and win reserve titles, and being in around the first team when it was so successful. I think I can't really look back and sort of have any sort of regrets or anything. It was just an amazing time really at the club.
Yeah, and the fact that you have no regrets and the fact you look back at it fondly, that's good. That's good to see. And again, the fact of the matter, you said that like an unfortunate event has kind of made you as a person. It kind of shows the mentality that you have, and the fact that you've kind of let yourself help you build you as a person mentally, and from that's absolutely brilliant to see. Phil, to kind of touch on, you mentioned the first team. We're going to talk current Manchester United. Obviously, we have a massive season coming up now. Ollie's, third full season, third in his first full season, second in his second full season. Now we're going to our third full season after on the back of it. In my opinion, a very good season, being unbeaten away from home. Unfortunately, look, we were a penalty kick away from winning the Europa League. These things happen. But now we're coming into a big season on the back of a good transfer window. In my opinion, that so far in terms of Rafael Varane, Jadon Sancho, they're two very good signings for me, best in class signings. It's been a while since we've kind of got that in positions we needed at particular times. But to kind of touch on tomorrow, we've Everton at Old Trafford, and it's kind of our final pre-season game. Obviously, for the large majority of pre-season, we've kind of had the I suppose the fringe players and the youth team kind of playing these kind of last couple of weeks. Unfortunately, due to obviously COVID-19 outbreak last week, unfortunately our game against Preston North End was cancelled. When you look at tomorrow's game against Everton, there is obviously the caveat that there's the players from Euros back, the Maguires, the Shaws of the world. Sancho is not going to be back until next week. Varane was only flown into Manchester yesterday. When you look in terms of ideal preparation coming into next week's game against Leeds, do you think Everton are the perfect opposition? And do you maybe think it's good for the likes of players, for like the likes of Harry Maguire and Luke Shaw, to get minutes in, because we're coming up against a Leeds team next Saturday who do play at a very high intensity?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one. In terms of the game tomorrow, Ollie's going to want to field as close to a team what he probably is going to be looking at to play against Leeds. You just mentioned some of the exceptions there, and a lot of lads who played in the Euros may feel as though they're still match fit, even though they probably do need a game before that Leeds game. But yeah, I think it's a good opposition. Everton, good established Premier League side, so it'll be a good test. And yeah, I think Ollie's going to look at that game tomorrow, and with the exception of the players we've just mentioned there who can't play for one reason or another, I think he's going to want to see some good performances from some of his sort of talisman who's going to be key players for him this season. So yeah, I think hopefully we can have a positive result. I mean, the result's not the be all and end all tomorrow, but you'd want to hopefully put in a good performance and get something from the game in terms of some good performances, some minutes in the legs for the players that need it, some more than others. And hopefully it'll give Ollie a bit more of a sort of idea of what he's going to be doing for the big one next week against Leeds.
Yeah, definitely. And look, I just want to mention, I for one cannot wait to be back in the full Old Trafford next Saturday. I am absolutely buzzing. I go every night before I'm going to bed, and it's all I'm thinking about in my mind. And the next week is going to be the slowest week of my life, 110%. But yeah, look, I agree. I think, look at tomorrow, it's almost a dress rehearsal for next week, because obviously it's an early kickoff. You're very good opposition to Everton under Rafa Benitez, who will themselves will want to kind of get a positive result before the start of the league season next week. And you look, apart from the likes of Sancho, Cavani, and Varane, you've most of the first team there. So you'd imagine whoever starts tomorrow will probably be in line to start next week. And look, I'm glad to see Paul Pogba's back. I think that's massively important to get minutes into his legs tomorrow. And look, I think he's a very important player. That I think last season, when you kind of look back on it, he was suffering from COVID before the season started last season, and he had no I know literally a whole squad had no preseason, but Paul Pogba coming back last season, he had no preseason and he was recovering from COVID, and we didn't see a good Paul Pogba for the first couple of weeks. So it's good to see him coming off the back of a very good Euros. I think it was very unfortunate what happened with France against Switzerland. That was kind of a freakish result. I thought Pogba was having kind of a. Do you remember the 2006 World Cup when Zidane was playing so well and he was dragging France to that final against Italy? I was nearly getting. I was kind of getting that same feeling with Pogba at the Euros just gone as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think, that game, obviously the Switzerland game was, again, went 3-1 up and it only looked like there was only going to be one winner. And for me, I mentioned it, I think, a few weeks ago, that Pogba looked, in the form of his life. I think for France, with the players he's got around him, he seems to have that free role and he expresses himself a lot more than sometimes he maybe does at United. But hopefully he can, if he's going to stay and he's going to be, a big player for us, then we're hoping that he can bring some of that form that he was showing in the Euros into the United side this year. Because if he does, then there's not many better than him in the world for me. When he's on it, he's probably the best player in that position.
Definitely, I think when you look at that kind of attacking midfield kind of position, I think the only players you can kind of look at in the world football at the moment who would be close to them in that position is Bruno Fernandes, Kevin De Bruyne, players like that who would kind of be in the same kind of category as Paul Pogba when on full form. Question here for Reese: Mason Greenwood, young forward that captures people's eyes and can't help but adore him. What do you see in him and what do you think he will achieve long term at Manchester United?
Well, it's funny. I mean, not a lot of people know, but when I did me UEFA B coaching badge about 5 years ago, and when I passed it, I actually did my final assessment at Carrington and seen a few of the old coaches and had a chat with some of the old coaches and stuff like that. And when I passed, I got asked to go in and do some coaching with the under-14s. Just because, player who'd played for the club, been through the academy, just come in, we love, having old players back and that kind of thing. So when I went in and did that bit of coaching, the under-14s, Mason Greenwood was the under-14 at that time. And he was one of the players that instantly sort of caught my eye, just in training and then in a few of the games that I'd watched. He was just unbelievable. Left foot, right foot, just seemed to drift past players like he wasn't there. And to see obviously the progress that he's made over that time from when I seen him at the age of 14, 15, whatever he will have been, to now, it's staggering really. I think he's someone who's going to be an unbelievable player once he properly establishes himself. I think he's doing the right thing with him at the moment in terms of not overplaying him and just keeps dipping him in and out and stuff, because I think he's still only young. He's still obviously going to be learning. It's great to have someone like Cavani, who's a seasoned pro at the club now, who we can learn from. But for me, he's only going to get better, and I think long term he's going to be probably United's main man for me in that centre forward role, depending on obviously when Cavani maybe moves on next year. Unless we sign another major player, for me, he would be someone who's an ideal player in that time frame to slot into that position, because he can play anywhere across the three of the front. He's left-footed, right-footed. He can score all types of goals. I think he'll be filling out a little bit more, hopefully, in the next year or two, and obviously he'll be working on his strengthening and conditioning, I can imagine, with the people at the club. So the world's his oyster for me. I think he could be one of the greatest players that the club's produced.
Definitely. And when you look at him, he's at such a young age, to see the maturity in his movement, his finishing, like, it looks so polished already. And he's only 19, which I think is absolutely scary, to be quite honest.
Yeah, it is. I mean, for someone so young to be doing what he's been doing, and it doesn't look like he's phased by anything. He looks cool in front of goal at such a young age. When you'd think a young player might be snatching at things because he seems like a proper player, and I think, as I said, he's only going to get better. He's been playing with world class players now for the best part of the last 2 or 3 years, and when you play with better players, it makes you better. He was already a fantastic player, but to be playing and getting the service from some of them players he's got now in the first team, you can't not improve. And I think he's somebody that's going to be a massive player for the club for many years.
Definitely. And I think one thing as well I'd just like to mention is when Jadon Sancho gets into that team and his link up with Mason Greenwood, it frightens me to see like how good it actually could be. And then a fully fit Marcus Rashford coming off surgery, like, you look at the numbers he produced whilst being injured, and then he's going to come back fully fit. We could have one, like a front three for the next decade. When you look at their ages, Rashford 23, Sancho 21, Greenwood 19. Like, you could have your front three for the next decade. And I think Ollie done the right thing, keeping Cavani at the club for that extra season to kind of help mould Greenwood's development. And then next season, I think I'm in agreement. I think he will be our first team number 9. And I think he'd reap the benefits from having Cavani at the club for the extra year.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. I mean, someone like Cavani, you see the movements, and his legs aren't probably what they used to be in terms of the speed and the quickness, but his brain, you never lose that. And some of the goals he scored in the last couple of seasons have been, fantastic, just because he's a lethal finisher when he gets in them positions, and that little arcs run that he does for getting across defenders, and the little coming short and spinning in behind and all that kind of thing. Someone like a Greenwood and Rashford and people like that, you can only learn off players. Like, I remember when I was at the club, and I was in and around the first team maybe a little bit, and I used to just watch Van Nistelrooy, and I used to just watch Solskjaer, and I used to watch Rooney, and I used to watch Ronaldo, and I used to observe what they did and picked out little bits from them and think, wow, like, that's amazing. And just trying, someone like Greenwood now, he must be watching Cavani day in, day out in training and thinking, yeah, I want to be able to do that. And if he can bring that into his game as well as everything else that he's got, what a player he's going to turn out to be.
Definitely. And again, the fact we have a natural right winger there, I think that's going to help him get at least another 5-10 goals a season, in terms of, because everything like usually comes from our left hand side, and obviously through Bruno. But now you have a right winger there. I think for overall balance for attack, it's going to do us wonders. Finally, just before we wrap up, obviously we've had a very good transfer window. We've potentially, now we could be bringing in 1 or 2 more players depending on outgoings. Let's say, in a hypothetical sense, we do get that defensive midfield player in, and we do get that right back who's probably going to be Kieran Trippier. Where do your expectations be? Because obviously we finished third his first season, second to last season. Would you be expecting us to be at least in the conversation for the title this year? And would you maybe think maybe make a stab at one of the domestic trophies as well?
Yeah, well, I think that's got to be the target. I mean, Manchester United, inevitably you want to be challenging for titles year in, year out. I know obviously there's been a transition period for the last however many years, but this season with the transfer window that we've had, and if we can get them with a couple of players that you just mentioned, that'll obviously bolster the squad up and sort of put them key areas that we was maybe lacking in a little bit. So there's not really any excuse. That starting 11, once everybody's fully fit and up to speed, for me, it's as good as any other team that's out there. And, it may take a bit of time for them to gel and, sort of get to the levels that they need to be. But, for me, as you just said there, if we can win a domestic trophy this year and, put a good title charge together and, whether we finish third, second, first, whatever, I think that'd be seen as, again, making progress. For me, the away form last year was amazing with, the team that we had, and there's no reason why with the players that we've added we can't do something similar. So if we can cut out them games at home where we lost points against, some of the teams we should never have lost points to, then there's, we'd have been there or thereabouts. So yeah, that's my expectation this year. I'm thinking minimum got to be top 3, and if we can win a domestic trophy and maybe have a decent run in the Champions League, maybe get to a semi-final, then for me that'd be another step in the right direction.
Definitely. I think for me, from my point of view, I'm definitely looking at it in the sense that if we're at least 6 to 8 points away from the title, coming by the end of the season, if we don't win it, at least we're in that kind of gap. I wouldn't be too disheartened, because that means we've been in the conversation for large parts of the season. Because I think when you look back at last year, as soon as we were in a title race, we realized we were in a title race, we were out of it in 2 weeks. So I think for me, I'm kind of at the point where I can really appreciate our progress under Ollie. I think he's done a lot of great things to consider where he picked up to the club to where it is now. Not just at first team level, but how he's helped with the academy structure, the kind of redeveloping in the last couple of years. He's been a very big part of that. And so I think he deserves a lot of credit. So for me to see the fact he's got back-to-back top 4 finishes, and now he's got the backing off the Glazers, from that, they're putting their trust in him, and they're saying look, you're the first manager post Sir Alex Ferguson to get us back-to-back top 4 finishes. Here's your icing on the cake now in Sancho and Varane and maybe potentially others. He's deserved that backing, and I think now is the time to win a trophy. Now I think that's massively important to kind of signify your kind of progress that you've been making over these last 3 or so years. And of course, look, you mentioned the Champions League. I think Champions League is massively important for us to get a good run in that, because it's been a while since we've had kind of a real run at the Champions League, and Chelsea showed last year that that is possible to do it. So we've nearly just as good as a team as them, or if not as good. Yeah. Why not? Why not? Why not go for it to get to quarterfinal, semi-final? Do you know what I mean? We have the fact you've Varane in there who's a serial winner in the Champions League. Sancho is one of the best young right wingers in the world. You have Bruno Fernandes, who, in my opinion, at the moment probably is the best attacking midfield player in form, attacking midfield player in the world, alongside Paul Pogba. Why not? Why can't you go for it, make a run for the Champions League and the league and all the trophies that we're going to be in the running for? Why can't you be in the conversation for all of them? I think if Ollie can do that next season, I think it'd be massive. And when I look at this Man United team, it's the most likable team we've had post Sir Alex Ferguson. I think for me personally, I've never not liked the Man United team, but do you know when you know that you kind of have that connection to the team, you know that team is going to fight till the end, you know that the team is going to put 100% in, and you always kind of have confidence in the team to do that. Post Sir Alex, this current United team now under Solskjaer gives me that belief, whereas in previous regimes, I probably didn't have the same belief I'd have now, where I would have had under Sir Alex. So if there's anyone who I want to succeed more at this football club, it's Ollie. I'd love to see him bring the Premier League back to Old Trafford. It'll just be, it would kind of, be poetic almost, in terms of he's a Man United man. And I think,
and I think obviously with the connection that he's got with the majority of the fans as well, it'd be amazing. An icon of the club, someone who obviously, scored the goal in '99 to win the treble, and obviously, it was never, a starter as such, for season in, season out, but for somebody who had, so many important goals, always came on off the bench and made an impact when he played, and somebody who's loved by, majority of the fans. And I think it would be, as you just say there, for him to bring a trophy back this year, and hopefully then, potentially bring a league title or a Champions League back in the next couple of years would be, amazing, I think, and he fully deserves that because, again, I've echoed it a few times. He's a fantastic person. He loves football. He absolutely loves the club. He's a great man-to-man manager, and for me, I wouldn't sort of I love nothing more than to see someone like that bring success back to the club.
Definitely 100%. And look, I think this season is kind of, I wouldn't say make or break, but I think a lot of us will kind of want now to kick on because like we've made significant progress in the last couple of years. I think now is time really let's really push. And I think Ollie, like he said in his interview yesterday with Joe Rob Dawson from ESPN, he said like now is the time we need to kick on. So we're all kind of in unison in that regard. But look, really looking forward to the start of the season next week. Really looking forward to watching us against Everton tomorrow as well. As I said, a dress rehearsal for next Saturday, the 12:30 kickoff against Leeds. That's all we got time for today, guys. So thanks very much to Phil for coming on here today. As always, we will be back at a different time next week on next Thursday at 7:15. So we will be recording our podcast next Thursday. Going forward after that, it will be every Friday at 7 o'clock. Also, don't forget, guys, to smash a like in the video, and below Phil is the subscribe button and the bell notification as well. So as I said, every time when you hit that subscribe button and hit the bell notification, every time there's a show with me and Phil or Wayne and Paul or any other podcast that we do go live with, or if it's pre-recorded, you will get a notification on your YouTube app, on your phone, tablet, or wherever device you use straight away. And also don't forget to check out our website at www.talkofthedevils.co.uk. And also don't forget, if you're on that website, do check out the piece on Fabio and Barcelona on the website at talkofthedevils.co.uk. Very interesting piece there, so do check that out as well. But thanks very much, everyone, for watching now and who also will watch on the replay later on. And we'll be back next week, next Thursday, to talk Manchester United's game against Everton, but also the old enemy Leeds United are back at Old Trafford next Saturday. So we'll be able to talk all about that as well. But until then, thanks very much, everyone, for watching, and we'll be back next week.